Welcome, dear dreamer, to Anastasia's Whisper, a quiet place for soft stories, slow thoughts, and peaceful sleep. Tonight, we wander into the past, into ancient mysteries no one has solved, real places, real ruins, still unanswered, still whispering through time. If these stories help you rest, I'd love for you to subscribe, so you always have a calm place to return to. And if you feel like it, tell us in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? It's always beautiful to see how far this peaceful circle reaches. From tiny towns to big cities, we fall asleep under the same stars. Now, let your mind grow quiet. Let your breath slow and come with me to the edge of the oldest question we've ever found, buried beneath a lonely hill. In the quiet hills of southeastern Turkey, not far from the ancient city of Şanlıurfa, there lies a mound of earth that held a secret, one no one was looking for. For thousands of years, it was just that, a hill, overgrown with grass and goats. But in 1994, a shepherd noticed a stone sticking out of the soil, tall, smooth, and strangely shaped. It was no accident, and what lay beneath would become one of the most astonishing discoveries in the history of archaeology. This is Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known monumental structure. Radiocarbon dating places its earliest layers around 9,600 BCE, more than 11,500 years ago. That's 7,000 years before the pyramids of Giza, 6,000 years before Stonehenge, centuries before the invention of the wheel, before the first cities rose in Mesopotamia. This was the end of the last ice age. And yet, someone carved limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, transported them without wheels or animals, and arranged them into great circular enclosures. Some of the pillars stood 5.5 meters tall, taller than a giraffe, all of them perfectly placed, oriented with cosmic precision. The stones are covered in reliefs, carvings of wild animals that no longer roam the area: foxes, aurochs, wild boars, scorpions, and vultures. Some of the motifs are abstract, others resemble celestial alignments. But here's what makes Göbekli Tepe truly strange. There were no houses, no burials, no tools for farming, no pottery, no hearths, no signs of everyday life. This wasn't a city, it wasn't a home, it was sacred space, and that alone changes everything. Because until Göbekli Tepe, historians believe temples came after agriculture, after humans settled down and organized into complex societies. But here was a temple built by hunter-gatherers, long before permanent villages existed. This suggests something radical, that belief came first, that humans gathered in large groups to worship, to hold ceremonies, to connect with something greater than themselves, and that in order to keep gathering, they began farming. In other words, spiritual life may have sparked civilization itself. Even more curiously, the people who built Göbekli Tepe did not abandon it. They buried it, deliberately, filling each enclosure with rubble and soil, as if preserving it for someone in the far future, or sealing it off as part of a ritual we can no longer understand. Excavations have only touched a small portion of the site. Geophysical surveys suggest there may be over 20 stone circles still buried beneath the ground. We've barely scratched the surface. We don't know what they called it. We don't know what they believed. But in this place, at the dawn of time, someone carved their awe into stone and gave it to the earth. Now let's leave the highlands of Turkey and follow the warm winds south, where desert sands cradle a monument so massive, so precise, that even today it challenges everything we know about ancient builders. They rise from the desert like a mirage made of stone, timeless, silent, perfect in proportion. The Great Pyramids of Giza, built more than 4,500 years ago, and still today, no one can fully explain how. We know they were tombs, at least in theory, constructed during the 4th dynasty of ancient Egypt, around 2600 BCE, under the rule of Pharaoh Khufu. His pyramid, the largest, originally stood at 146.6 meters high, the tallest structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. Built from over 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing between 2 and 80 tons. But here's what makes it so mysterious. The ancient Egyptians had no pulleys, no wheels, no iron tools. They carved these massive stones with copper chisels, hauled them across desert plains, and somehow aligned them with a precision modern engineers still admire. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal points, true north, south, east, and west, with an error of less than 1/15 of a degree. That level of precision, using only the tools of the Bronze Age, baffles researchers even now. And deep inside there are passageways and chambers whose purpose is still debated. The so-called King's Chamber, made of red granite from Aswan, 400 miles to the south. The stone blocks weigh up to 80 tons each. How did they move them and raise them dozens of meters into the air? No ancient texts describe the construction, no blueprints, no notes left behind. The workers left no graffiti inside the pyramid walls, only the stone and the silence. Some archaeologists believe vast ramps were used. Others propose levers and sand. Some even suggest water flotation methods. And there are theories, more speculative, that hint at lost knowledge of acoustics, vibrational lifting, or forgotten technologies. But the truth is, we don't know for certain, and we haven't even explored all of it. In recent years, a hidden void was discovered within the Great Pyramid, a large, unknown chamber, sealed off and untouched for thousands of years. Its purpose? Still a mystery. Then there are the questions of why. Was it only a tomb, or something more? The pyramid's dimensions appear to encode astronomical and mathematical knowledge. The ratio of its base to height mirrors that of a hemisphere. Its placement on Earth is almost mathematically perfect, at the center of all land masses. Coincidence? Or design? We may never know. But as you lie here tonight, you are older than some nations, but younger than these stones. They watched the stars long before telescopes. They stood tall before we wrote poetry. They wait, still whispering, still unsolved. Now we leave the land of sand and kings and fly west, across an ocean, to a desert plateau in Peru, where giant creatures and lines stretch across the earth, drawn not for the eye, but perhaps for the sky. Across the dry coastal plains of southern Peru, where rain hasn't fallen in centuries, the earth holds a secret, one you can only see from above. Etched into the desert floor are hundreds of massive designs, perfectly straight lines stretching for miles, geometric shapes, spirals, zigzags, and then animals. A hummingbird, a spider, a monkey with a curling tail, a condor in full flight, its wings spanning 400 feet, each one formed by removing the top layer of reddish pebbles, revealing the pale earth beneath. A method so simple, yet somehow executed on a monumental scale. These are the Nazca lines, created between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nazca culture, a pre-Incan civilization with no written language, but an astonishing sense of vision. How did they make them, and who were they for? From the ground, they seem like random pathways. Only from high above, in the air, do the images fully emerge. But the Nazca had no airplanes, no balloons, no way to view their own artwork from above. And yet, the proportions are precise, the symmetry uncanny, as if someone or something was watching from the sky. Some believe the lines were ceremonial. The people walk them as ritual paths, offerings to the gods of water and fertility in a harsh and arid land. Others think they were astronomical, aligned with solstices and star patterns, designed to mark seasonal changes, a kind of desert calendar. Still others suggest they were maps of underground water sources, visible only to those who knew how to read the land. And then, of course, there are the more mysterious theories that the lines were meant for gods in the sky, that they were landing guides for ancient visitors, or messages, not to each other but to the stars. But no matter the purpose, what remains most extraordinary is that they've lasted. Protected by the still air and dry soil, the lines have survived more than 1,500 years, with barely a trace of erosion. And we still haven't uncovered all of them. Even today, satellite imaging continues to reveal new geoglyphs hidden beneath the sand, animals we've never seen before, patterns that challenge old interpretations, whispers, waiting in silence. They say if you walk the Nazca Desert at dawn, the ground glows a pale gold, and if you listen closely, you'll feel it, a strange stillness, as if the earth remembers something we've long forgotten. Now let us travel farther east, to a vanished civilization that left no legend, no armies, no monuments in stone, only perfect cities and a sudden, haunting silence. There once was a civilization as grand as Egypt, as old as Mesopotamia, and yet for thousands of years, the world forgot it ever existed. Along the dry riverbeds of what is now Pakistan and northwest India, the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro tell a story, but one without words, because no one knows what their language means. No one knows where they came from, or why they disappeared. This is the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappans. Flourishing between 2600 and 1900 BCE, they built cities on a grid, with wide streets, organized neighborhoods, and astonishing precision. Their buildings were made of kiln-fired brick, uniform in size. Their homes had bathrooms, some even had private wells, and their cities had advanced drainage systems, so sophisticated they rival some modern towns. They had no kings carved in stone, no pyramids, no temples, no weapons, no armies. And yet, Their civilization covered over 1 million square kilometers, with a population that may have reached 5 million. They traded with Mesopotamia. They crafted jewelry, tools, and seals with animal symbols. They were peaceful, organized, and brilliantly efficient. But then, they were gone. Around 1900 BCE, something happened. Their cities were slowly abandoned. No signs of war, no invasion, no great fire or destruction, just emptiness. Some believe the Sarasvati River, their lifeline, dried up. Others suggest massive climate shifts or earthquakes that disrupted water sources. Still others point to the mysterious decline of trade or internal shifts we cannot yet read, because their script, a collection of small signs and symbols, remains undeciphered. We've found over 4,000 inscribed objects, but no Rosetta Stone, no bilingual translation, and until we can read what they left behind, their voices remain silent. There's something haunting in that, a people so advanced, so peaceful, simply walked away, leaving perfect cities to the dust, and not even a word of why. Sometimes the greatest mystery is not what was lost, but how quietly it disappeared. Now we cross the sea again, back toward the cradle of Western thought. But what we find isn't a scroll or a ruin or a statue, but a machine, one so precise it shouldn't exist. It was pulled from the sea in the year 1901, a twisted lump of corroded bronze, recovered by sponge divers near the Greek island of Antikythera. At first, it looked like nothing, just another relic from a sunken Roman shipwreck. But inside were gears, tiny teeth, clockwork, and the deeper they looked, the stranger it became. This is the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient device so complex, so precise, that historians once thought it had to be a mistake. More than 2,000 years old, built around 150 BCE, the mechanism is made of bronze gears, arranged in a way that mimics modern engineering. A mechanical computer, before computers even had names. It could track the positions of the sun and moon, predict solar and lunar eclipses, model planetary motion, and possibly even display the dates of the Olympic Games. It had a differential gear system, something thought to have been invented in the 16th century, not in the age of togas and scrolls. And it was small, about the size of a shoebox, cranked by hand, inscribed with more than 2,000 characters of Greek text, like a user manual written for minds, long vanished. For years, no one believed it was real. How could such advanced technology exist in the ancient world, only to vanish completely? We still don't know who made it. Some speculate it was built in Rhodes, possibly linked to the school of Hipparchus, the great astronomer. Others believe it was one of many, and that others like it simply didn't survive. But here's the mystery. Nothing like it was ever found again. The Greeks, and later the Romans, never replicated this technology. The knowledge disappeared, as if someone had glimpsed the future and then dropped it into the sea. Today, parts of the mechanism are displayed in Athens. Scientists have used X-ray imaging to reconstruct how it worked, gear by gear. We now know it had at least 30 gears, perhaps more, and its accuracy in tracking the cosmos rivals mechanisms made in the 18th century. How did they do it? Who understood the sky so well and the machine so completely? And why? after this one perfect miracle, did the ancient world forget. Now we sink deeper still, not beneath the sea, but beneath memory, to a city that may never have existed or may have ruled the world before it vanished in a single day. The story begins not with ruins, but with words. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, wrote of a powerful civilization that had long vanished beneath the waves. He described it in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, around 360 BCE, a land beyond the Pillars of Heracles, which we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, a mighty naval empire, richer than any other, with kings descended from the gods, temples covered in gold and ivory, hot and cold fountains that ran through the cities, canals cut in perfect circles. Atlantis. According to Plato, this utopia was not just wealthy, it was wise, a beacon of balance between power and virtue. But over time, its people grew arrogant, corrupt. They lost the favor of the gods. And then, in a single day and night, they were gone, swallowed by the sea. Was it just a fable? Plato said it was a true account, passed down from Egyptian priests to the Athenian lawmaker Solon, and then to Plato himself. But for centuries, historians dismissed it, a philosophical metaphor, a cautionary tale dressed in myth. And yet, the idea of Atlantis refuses to die. In Spain, satellite images of Doñana National Park show unusual ring-like formations beneath layers of salt and sediment. Researchers have proposed that this might be the very site Plato described. In the Azores, in the Caribbean, and even off the coast of Cuba, divers and sonar teams have reported unusual geometric patterns, massive stone structures beneath the sea, none confirmed, all debated. Some look to Santorini, once known as Thera, an island shattered by a volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. The explosion was one of the largest in recorded history. It destroyed much of the Minoan civilization, creating tidal waves, earthquakes, and ash clouds that darken skies across the Mediterranean. This theory holds weight. The Minoans were advanced, seafaring, wealthy, with artwork of dolphins and labyrinths, palaces built without fortifications, and plumbing systems more sophisticated than anything seen for centuries after. And then they were gone. Could this be what Plato remembered? A real disaster filtered through centuries of storytelling. Others go further still, proposing that Atlantis was not in the Mediterranean, but across the ocean, that it might lie beneath the Atlantic, a continent lost to rising seas at the end of the last ice age. This would place its destruction around 11,600 years ago, a time of global melt, sea level rise, and strange upheavals in climate history. Interestingly, Plato places the fall of Atlantis at exactly that point. Coincidence or echo? There are also those who link Atlantis to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, the idea that a comet struck Earth around that time, causing fires, floods, and the collapse of unknown Paleolithic cultures. But here's the enduring mystery. We have no physical proof, no inscriptions, no ruins with the name Atlantis carved in stone, just fragments, possibilities, and an idea too powerful to fade. Maybe Plato invented it. Maybe he preserved a half-remembered truth. Or maybe Atlantis was never a place, Maybe it was a mirror of everything we dream to be and everything we fear to lose. A civilization that rose too high, shined too brightly, and was washed away by its own weight. And somewhere beneath the waves, a silence remains, heavy, waiting. Now we step from water to stone, to a riddle carved into the bedrock of time, a face that watches the desert, older perhaps than we've ever dared to admit. Up next, the great Sphinx and the mystery of the rain. It stares across the Giza plateau as it has for millennia, stoic, weathered, and silent. The great Sphinx, half lion, half man, massive, motionless, mysterious. It lies just east of the pyramids, its body stretching 73 meters long, its face carved with what's believed to be the image of Pharaoh Khafre, who reigned around 2500 BCE. But not everyone agrees, because while the pyramids are wonders of human geometry, the Sphinx is a riddle of geology. And some believe its true story may be thousands of years older than anyone once thought. Let's begin with the accepted view. Most Egyptologists agree that the Sphinx was carved during the 4th dynasty, around the same time Khafre built his pyramid. The evidence is circumstantial. There are no inscriptions naming the Sphinx, no records explaining why it was carved, or by whom. But nearby temples and stylistic features tie it loosely to Khafre's reign. However, in the 1990s, a new theory emerged, one that challenged everything. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch of Boston University examined the erosion patterns along the Sphinx's body, and what he found wasn't wind damage, but water. Deep vertical fissures, curved weathering lines, marks consistent with long-term heavy rainfall. But here's the problem. Egypt hasn't seen that kind of rainfall since the end of the last ice age, around 7,000 to 10,000 BCE. Which means, if Schoch is right, the Sphinx could be far older than the pyramids themselves, older than writing, older than dynasties, carved by a people we no longer remember. Mainstream scholars were skeptical. They argue that other forces, like salt crystallization, wind abrasion, or pooling water, could mimic that kind of erosion. But the debate persists, and it's not just the erosion. The head of the Sphinx seems disproportionately small compared to its body. Could it have been recarved from an earlier, larger lion's head? Was it originally an animal, a guardian of the sacred site, later reshaped into a human form? And what of the so-called dream stele placed between its paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV? It speaks of the Sphinx in riddles, a whisper from the gods in a dream, not a record of construction. Beneath the Sphinx are chambers detected by seismic surveys, but never fully excavated. Are they natural hollows, or something more? In myth, the Sphinx is a keeper of riddles, a creature that demands answers, but gives none. And in the desert, where the wind hides footprints and time wears even the strongest stone, maybe that's what it was always meant to be. A question, carved in limestone, one that predates memory and watches, still waiting for us to understand. Now let the wind fade and follow it east into the thin air of the Andes, where stones weigh more than elephants, yet fit together like a puzzle made by time itself. Up next, a temple of impossible precision. High in the Bolivian Andes, where the air is thin and the sky feels closer than the ground, a shattered complex of megalithic ruins lies scattered across a plateau. Massive stones, some weighing more than 100 tons, tossed and broken like forgotten toys of the gods. This place is called Puma Punku, Gate of the Puma. It is one of the most puzzling sites in all of South America, and one of the most debated. Part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, Puma Punku, is believed to have been constructed around 500 to 600 CE by the Tiwanaku civilization, long before the rise of the Inca. But what they built feels impossibly ahead of its time. The stones are not just large, they are carved with sharp, geometric precision, right angles, smooth grooves, interlocking joints that fit so tightly you cannot slide a blade between them. Some blocks are shaped like perfect H's, modular pieces, like ancient 3D blueprints. They appear almost manufactured, cut with a consistency modern stonemasons struggle to replicate, even with diamond tools. And here's the thing. They had none. No steel chisels, no wheels, no written language, just stone, bone, and copper. Yet somehow, they engineered a structure that defies explanation. Some blocks are made from andesite, a volcanic rock nearly as hard as granite. Transporting these stones from nearby quarries would have required immense effort, some weighing more than 100,000 kilograms. How did they move them? How did they lift them? And how did they cut them so precisely with tools we have never found? There are no surviving records, no carving tools, no instruction stones left behind. Some researchers believe the Tiwanaku people used simple stone tools and sand abrasion, rubbing away at rock until the lines were straight. Others argue this would have taken decades per block. Some speculate about lost knowledge, ancient engineering secrets now buried beneath the earth. And yes, some go further, proposing that Puma Punku is the remnant of something older, much older, a civilization that predated Tiwanaku, or perhaps even contact from beyond the earth. Those are fringe theories, but they echo the site's undeniable strangeness. And then, the destruction. At some point, perhaps in a massive earthquake, Puma Punku was shattered, its great stones tossed and cracked, left in ruins as if frozen in mid-construction, or mid-collapse. What once stood here? A temple? A palace? A cosmic calendar? No one knows. But even broken, Puma Punku speaks. It whispers of a time when people could shape mountains into puzzles, when stone became language, and when geometry was a form of devotion. And then, like so many ancient marvels, it was left behind. Now the wind carries us farther west, to a misty island in the ocean, where enormous heads stare silently across the land, as if waiting for something, or someone, to return. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent, there is a small, windswept island that holds one of the world's most haunting sights. More than 900 stone figures stand scattered across its hills and coastline, silent, solemn, unblinking. They are the Moai, carved by hand, lifted into place, and left to watch the sea. This is Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island, discovered by Europeans on Easter Sunday, 1722. But long before that, a thriving Polynesian society lived here, one of the most isolated cultures on Earth. Between roughly 1100 and 1600 CE, they carved these statues from compressed volcanic ash, many weighing over 10 tons, some as tall as 33 feet. The Moai were shaped to represent deified ancestors, with elongated faces, deep-set eyes, and heavy brows. Most face inland, as if protecting their people, watching over villages that no longer stand. But how they were moved remains a riddle. The quarry lies inland, yet the Moai dot the entire island. Some researchers believe they were hauled on wooden sleds or rolled on logs, methods that would have required massive resources on an island with limited trees. But oral tradition tells another story. The statues walked. Using ropes, teams would rock the Moai forward, side to side, a slow, shuffling dance across the land. It sounds like myth, but in 2012, a team of archaeologists demonstrated that it could be done. They made a replica Moai walk, with just 3 teams in a coordinated rhythm. Perhaps the ancient Rapa Nui really did make their ancestors move. But then came the collapse. At some point in the 17th century, the Moai stopped being raised. Many were toppled, the quarries were abandoned, and the island fell into decline. There are many theories: deforestation, soil erosion, civil conflict, European contact, and disease. Whatever the cause, the society that once built these monuments was fractured, its knowledge lost. Some Moai wear pukau, cylindrical red stone hats. Some are buried up to their necks, their bodies hidden underground. And a few still stand tall, alone among fields of grass and wildflowers, gazing out toward the waves, as if listening for a memory no one can name. The Moai do not speak, but they endure, and in their silence they remind us that to be remembered, you do not need to speak, only to stand. Now we sail back to the mainland, to the jungles of Central America, where pyramids rise like mountains beneath the vines, and a great civilization vanished into the trees without a sound. Deep in the emerald jungles of Central America, stone temples rise through the trees like forgotten mountains. Massive staircases, ornate carvings, pyramids aligned with stars. These are the ruins of the Maya civilization, once one of the most brilliant cultures in the ancient world, and one of the most mysterious in how it faded. For nearly 2,000 years, the Maya ruled the rainforest of what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. They built cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, rising from the green with palaces, ball courts, and towers so tall they pierced the canopy. They were master mathematicians. They charted the movements of Venus, the sun, and the moon. They developed one of the most complex writing systems of the ancient world. Over 800 glyphs carved into stone and painted onto codices. They understood zero. They tracked eclipses. They built calendars that spanned thousands of years. And then, between the 8th and 9th centuries, CE, something happened. The Maya heartland, their great cities in the southern lowlands, were abandoned. Temples left to the vines, plazas emptied, stone inscriptions ending mid-story. There is no single explanation. No burning, no conquest, no collapse written in blood. Instead, just silence. So what happened? Archaeologists believe it was a slow unraveling. Evidence points to droughts, long devastating periods without rain. The Maya depended on reservoirs, and without rainfall, their cities would have suffered. Population growth may have outpaced their ability to produce food. Deforestation could have worsened drought conditions. Political fragmentation, warring kingdoms and shifting alliances might have eroded stability. It wasn't a single fall, but a series of pressures, environmental, social, spiritual, and perhaps that's what makes the Maya collapse so haunting. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden. It was a gentle vanishing, a retreat into the trees. And yet, the Maya never truly disappeared. Their descendants still live throughout Central America, still speak Maya languages, still remember. Even now, their ancient cities are being rediscovered. Temples once buried beneath dirt and roots, revealed by LiDAR scans and slow, careful excavation. What we once thought were isolated ruins are now understood to be parts of vast networks, millions of people living in harmony with the jungle. And though many of their books were burned by Spanish conquerors, many of their stories survived. In stone, in language, in blood. The Maya did not vanish, but the age of their great cities did. And no single voice tells us why. Only the wind through the trees, only the moss on the stones, only time. And now, we cross an ocean again to another ancient puzzle. Not a city, but a library, not built with bricks, but with knowledge and fire. There once was a library so vast, so legendary that it was said to hold the knowledge of the entire ancient world. Not a myth, not a temple, a library. And its name still echoes like a ghost through the corridors of history. The Library of Alexandria, founded in Egypt in the 3rd century BCE, in the vibrant port city of Alexandria, this was more than a place for scrolls. It was a dream made real, a dream that knowledge, all knowledge, could be gathered in one place and preserved. The library was part of the Mausion, a temple dedicated to the Muses, goddesses of inspiration, science, art, and memory. It was built under the rule of Ptolemy I Soter, a general of Alexander the Great, and expanded by his successors. At its peak, it may have housed 400,000 to 700,000 papyrus scrolls on medicine, astronomy, philosophy, mathematics, religion, and poetry, from Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, India, and beyond. Any ship that entered Alexandria's harbor was said to be searched. Scrolls were taken to be copied. The originals were kept, the copies returned. The goal was simple: to know everything. Imagine walking through its halls, walls of text, shelves of ancient science, words from forgotten tongues, knowledge written by hands long gone, and all of it within reach. But then it vanished, and no one knows exactly how. Some say it was burned by Julius Caesar in 48 BCE during his siege of the city, accidentally, when fire spread from the docks to the library. Others blame Theophilus, the Christian patriarch in the 4th century CE, who may have seen pagan knowledge as a threat. Still others cite Caliph Omar in the 7th century, though historians debate whether this event ever truly happened. The truth? It may have been destroyed not in one blaze, but slowly, piece by piece, scroll by scroll, a slow erosion of memory. And what was lost, we'll never fully know. Works by great minds that we now only know by name. Homer, Archimedes, Hypatia, Sappho, even whole philosophies that never reached us. It is possible that ideas centuries ahead of their time were written in those scrolls. Medicines, maps, machines, and they turned to ash before we could understand them. The Library of Alexandria is more than a ruin. It's a symbol of what can be lost, of what knowledge is worth, and how fragile memory truly is. It reminds us that human progress isn't a straight line. It can burn, it can vanish, and it can be forgotten. All it takes is silence. Next, we travel far inland to a place where massive jars lie scattered across the hills like ancient offerings, with no writing, no clue, and no clear reason at all. High in the misty mountains of northern Laos, where clouds drift low and the wind carries the scent of wet stone, lies a quiet plateau unlike any other in the world. Here, scattered across more than 90 sites, are thousands of mysterious stone jars, some as tall as a person, some weighing several tons, lying alone in fields of grass. This is known as the Plain of Jars, a name that's simple and strangely haunting. No one knows exactly when they were placed here, or why. The jars are made of sandstone, granite, and limestone, quarried, shaped, and transported without wheels, metal tools, or mortar. Some are plain, others bear carved lids or decorations, but most stand open, their purpose still unsolved. For years, villagers told stories that the jars were used by giants to brew rice wine after ancient battles. Others said they were water vessels or offerings to the sky. But archaeologists believe they served as funerary urns, part of ancient burial rituals dating back to the Iron Age, perhaps 500 BCE to 500 CE. Excavations have uncovered human remains, beads, and burial goods buried nearby, suggesting that these jars once held the dead or were part of rituals to honor them. Still, many stand far from any known burial site, and no written records remain. Who were these people? Why did they use such massive jars instead of tombs or temples? And how did they move them, some weighing over 10,000 kilograms, across rugged hills and muddy ground? Then there's the deeper tragedy. During the 20th century, this peaceful plateau became one of the most heavily bombed places on Earth. Millions of unexploded bombs from the Vietnam War still lie hidden beneath the soil. Many jar sites remain off limits, surrounded by warning signs and silence. The Plain of Jars became a battlefield, its ancient mystery caught in a modern storm. And yet, the jars remain. Through war, time, and weather, they still stand, empty, open, waiting, as if still holding space for something sacred we no longer remember, or someone. Now let's return to the Nile, to a land of kings and tombs, where another mystery lies not in what was built, but in what may have once been built, and then completely erased. We're drifting once more through time, and tonight into the heart of Egypt, to uncover one of the greatest structures ever built, that no longer exists. Imagine a temple so vast, so complex, that even the ancient Greeks were left speechless. A place with more chambers than the pyramids, more mystery than the tombs of kings. A place so magnificent that Herodotus, the most famous historian of classical antiquity, wrote with wide eyes and ink-stained wonder, "It surpasses even the pyramids." But here's the catch. You can't visit it. You can't walk its halls. You won't find it on any tourist map, because it's gone. This is the tale of Egypt's lost labyrinth. We begin around 1800 BCE, during the reign of Amenemhat III, one of the last great pharaohs of Egypt's Middle Kingdom. At the edge of the Fayum oasis, near the city once called Crocodilopolis, a temple was said to rise from the desert like a stone mirage, a place of courts and corridors, shrines and sacred halls, not a maze in the modern sense, but a sacred compound, part tomb, part temple, part cosmic symbol. Herodotus, who visited Egypt centuries later, described it in awe. He claimed the labyrinth had 12 enormous courts, each facing one another, and over 3,000 rooms, half above ground, half hidden below. And those underground rooms, "I was not permitted to enter them," he wrote, "for they contain the tombs of the kings who built the labyrinth and of the sacred crocodiles." Yes, crocodiles. In this part of Egypt, the Nile's great reptiles were seen as sacred manifestations of Sobek, the crocodile-headed god of strength and fertility. But Herodotus wasn't the only one spellbound. Strabo, the Roman geographer, called it a structure that defies imitation. Pliny the Elder wrote that no visitor could see the whole of it without becoming lost. Some believed it was a royal tomb, others a cosmic map designed to reflect the underworld, with each room symbolizing a stage in the soul's journey after death. And then it disappeared. So what happened? Many archaeologists believe the labyrinth stood at Hawara next to Amenemhat III's pyramid. But when Flinders Petrie excavated the site in the late 1800s, he found only rubble, broken columns, shattered granite, scattered limestone blocks. Not a labyrinth, not even a floor plan. Some blamed time. Some blamed later pharaohs who may have dismantled the temple stone by stone to build new cities, or the flooding Nile, which swallowed ancient foundations in layers of silt. Others think Pottery was close, but didn't dig deep enough. In 2008, a team using ground-penetrating radar scanned the site at Hawara and discovered massive rectangular cavities buried beneath the surface, measuring up to 300 meters long. Were they natural voids? Or the forgotten lower chambers of a vast temple? We don't know, because to this day, they remain unexcavated. Some believe they are the true labyrinth, intact and waiting beneath the sand. Others say we've already lost it forever, recycled, eroded, vanished like breath in the wind. And then there are the fringe theories that the labyrinth contained ancient knowledge, mathematical codes, or pre-dynastic secrets. A hall of records, a hidden vault of wisdom, destroyed or buried on purpose. But there is no proof, only stones, only silence. So what was it really? A royal tomb, a ritual complex, a symbolic map of the afterlife? Or was it just a myth that grew over time, a whispered exaggeration repeated through centuries? Yet, if it was only a legend, Why did so many ancient writers agree on the details? The number of rooms, the hidden levels, the sacred purpose. The truth is, we don't know. And perhaps that's what makes it so powerful. The pyramids still stand, but the labyrinth, a place that might have been greater, was swallowed by the earth and by time. A monument that may be waiting still under layers of sand and secrecy. Maybe it's out there now, just beneath our feet, holding the bones of pharaohs, or scrolls of lost knowledge, or maybe nothing at all. Just empty rooms, echoes of footsteps that once were. Now, we drift far from the Nile into the dusty hills of ancient Mesopotamia, where a simple clay jar was discovered in the 1930s, and what was found inside still sparks debate to this day. Could it have powered ancient lights? Or is it just a jar? Next, the Baghdad Battery. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates once shaped empires, a quiet discovery was made that would electrify the world, literally. In 1938, in the dusty hills near modern-day Baghdad, an archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig was cataloging artifacts in the basement of the National Museum of Iraq. Among the clay figurines and cuneiform tablets, he came across a strange object, a small, unremarkable ceramic jar, just 13 centimeters tall. But inside the jar was something no one expected, a copper cylinder sealed with asphalt, and inside the copper, a corroded iron rod. The jar was dated to around 200 BCE during the Parthian Empire, a time of kings and scholars, but no known electricity. And yet, Koenig recognized the structure. It looked exactly like a galvanic cell, a primitive battery. Could it be? Had the ancients created an electric device more than 1,800 years before modern science? He tested the theory. When the jar was filled with vinegar or lemon juice, mild acids, it produced a measurable electric charge, roughly 1 volt, not much, but enough to power a small reaction, enough perhaps to electroplate gold onto silver, or to deliver a tingling shock, a ritual sting from the gods. That's where the debate begins. Some scientists were stunned. The idea that ancient artisans could produce electricity challenged everything we thought we knew. Could they have used it to plate fine metals? Did priests wield it during ceremonies? A divine jolt mistaken for holy power? Or was it simply a mistake? Many scholars today believe it was not a battery at all. They argue that the copper and iron were for scroll storage, not conduction. That the acidic residue was from natural decay, not chemical design. There's no mention of batteries in Mesopotamian texts. No wires, no lamps. But then again, how much of history survives on paper? Some fringe researchers point to ancient carvings that look strangely like light bulbs in temples at Dendera in Egypt. Others claim knowledge was passed down, hidden, then lost in fire and conquest. The Baghdad Battery became legend. It was featured on documentaries, replicated in classrooms, and cited in books about lost technology. Even the Mythbusters tested it and got a mild electric jolt. But no one can prove the original intent. Was it a tool, a toy, a relic of something forgotten, or just a misunderstood pot? There is no second battery, No ancient instruction manual, just this one strange jar and a corroded whisper of something more. The truth may lie not in voltage, but in possibility, because every now and then, a simple object, a broken jar, can shock us into wonder. Now, our path takes us into the cold mountains of the Caucasus, where a megalithic puzzle defies explanation. Older than the pyramids, built without mortar, and filled with perfect spheres. In the high and the misty mountains of Georgia, the country nestled between Europe and Asia, there are stones. And they do not belong to time, not in the way we measure it, not in the way we understand it. These are cyclopean structures, megalithic walls of unmortared stone, fitted together with such precision that not even a blade of grass can slide between them. And these ruins are not alone. Scattered among them are perfectly round stone spheres, polished, symmetrical, and eerily balanced on hillsides where no tool could have shaped them. Some are the size of a melon, some the size of a boulder, but all of them seem out of place, too smooth, too many, too mysterious. Locals have whispered about them for centuries. Some call them dragon eggs. Others say they mark ley lines, those invisible tracks of earth energy mapped by stars and spirit. But it's not just folklore. Archaeologists have tried to make sense of it all, and what they've found is strange. The most famous of these sites is megalithic fortresses of Trialeti, an area southeast of Tbilisi, Georgia's capital. Here, the dry mountain wind blows across stone walls whose foundations may be older than the Egyptian pyramids. Some of the structures have astronomical alignments. Their doorways and cornerstones line up with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles. And yet, no texts were left, no records, no writing carved into stone. Who built them? Some believe it was the Kura Araxes culture, an early Bronze Age civilization that flourished here over 5,000 years ago. But their pottery, their burial mounds, nothing else they left behind explains how or why they mastered megalithic architecture so early. And the stone spheres. Similar shapes have been found in Costa Rica, Bosnia, and New Zealand, always in small clusters, always surrounded by myth. Were they ritual objects, star maps, ancient instruments? Some researchers suggest the spheres were primitive gyroscopes or measuring tools used to roll heavy blocks or plot celestial paths. Others think they were simply symbols, representations of unity, divinity, the eternal. But one fact remains. No one knows. There is no consensus, no agreed-upon date, no blueprint for replication. And because these sites are lesser known, tucked away in rural hillsides, many remain unexplored, untouched, buried, forgotten. The silence of the stones is louder than any answer. Could this have been a sacred astronomical site? A sky temple used to track the stars? Or a fortress? A ceremonial center? A library made of stone and shadow? Maybe it's all of these, or none at all. In the stillness of the Georgian hills, where clouds drift low and the ground hums with age, these megaliths remind us of a forgotten truth. The ancient world did not begin with us, and its wisdom may not speak in words. Now, We shift west into the vast deserts of the American Southwest, where a civilization once flourished, then vanished, leaving behind only canyon homes, spiral carvings, and a silence no one can decode. Next, the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans. In the red canyons of the American Southwest, beneath the blazing sun and the whispering desert winds, lie ruins carved into stone cliffs and stairways that lead nowhere. This is Chaco Canyon. This is Mesa Verde. This is the land of the ancestral Puebloans, a people once called the Anasazi. They built vast cities of stone, with roads stretching for miles, observatories aligned with solstices, and structures so advanced that their angles match celestial events with uncanny precision. These were not wandering tribes. These were planners, engineers, astronomers. Their homes, carved into high canyon walls, had hundreds of rooms, multi-story towers, and underground ceremonial chambers called kivas. And then they vanished. By the late 1200s, they were simply gone. The cities were abandoned. The fires in the hearths went cold, and no one truly knows why. Drought is one theory. The climate shifted, the rains stopped, and crops failed. Tree ring studies confirm long periods of dry years, a devastating blow to a people who relied on agriculture. But drought alone doesn't explain everything. Why the sudden departure? Why abandon stone cities and sacred sites that had stood for centuries? Some archaeologists believe social unrest played a role. Food shortages leading to conflict, migration, even violence. Others speak of a spiritual shift, a ceremonial ending to a cycle, a great migration prophesied by tradition. To this day, the Hopi, Zuni, and other Pueblo tribes trace their lineage to these ancestors. They say the people didn't vanish. They simply moved on, guided by sacred teachings, searching for the right place to live in balance with the earth. But still, the empty cities remain. The kivas, hollow and cold, the spiral carvings etched into canyon stone, marking time, or perhaps pointing to something more. Some scholars wonder if they were early astronomers, watching the heavens, building their lives around the cycles of sun and moon. Others suggest their roads, which run straight for miles, regardless of terrain, had ceremonial purposes, connecting sacred places rather than trade hubs. Theories bloom, but certainty fades, and maybe that's the perfect ending. The ancestral Puebloans remind us that not all departures are tragedies. Some are quiet acts of grace, a letting go of one world to find another. In the silence of the desert, among the rocks that once held laughter, drums, firelight, and dance, a question remains. What would cause an entire civilization to walk away without a sound? And with that, dear dreamer, our journey through the greatest ancient mysteries comes to a close. From buried temples to vanished people, from desert spirals to lost electricity, we've wandered through time guided by whispers, ruins, and stars. Let the wonder of it all carry you into rest, into that quiet place where every unanswered question becomes a dream. You are safe, you are still, you are held in mystery. Good night, and thank you for dreaming with me.